Welcome to Healings with Kat, the podcast. I'm Kat, or you can call me Catherine. I'm the host for this podcast. This is a space for healing, strengthening your intuition, and awakening to your true self. Over the next several episodes, I'm taking you with me through the journey that changed my life forever. I'll share how I discovered I was a clair empath psychic, the trauma I had to walk through, the moments that awakened something deep within me, and the lessons that taught me that our greatest pain can become our greatest purpose. My hope is that these stories inspire you to trust yourself, remember your inner strength, and realize that healing begins within. You can connect more with me on Facebook and Instagram at Healings with Kat. Stay tuned for future free limited Reiki, energy healing offerings, online and in person. And now, let's begin. Hello, and welcome to my very first podcast ever. In this first episode, we're going to talk about basically a story how I was slowly dying and no one knew why. This story went back from in 2011, and I felt like this is the very first story that I need to start this episode podcast about, because it really started this spiritual awakening to basically where I'm at now in my life. So let's begin. Back in 2011, I became completely obsessed with eating healthy. I was working out all the time, trying to make better choices. And one of the foods I ate all the time was sushi. And before you get all crazy about it, let me tell you some more. I would usually buy it from the grocery store in my hometown where I grew up in Thornton, Colorado. One day I picked up some sushi, brought it home, and ate it. And I did that quite a bit. Like, I would go to the grocery store and I would get sushi. And that was kind of my thing, like thinking that that's what I could eat to be healthy. I don't know what I was thinking, because of course you need to eat your daily vegetables and fruit intake. And within a short amount of time, I started feeling like incredibly sick to my stomach. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured I had caught a stomach bug that would pass in a few days. At the time, I was working at JCPenney's, so I just kept going to work and trying to push through it. But instead of getting better, I kept getting worse. After a few weeks, I couldn't keep down my food. I threw up everything. I was constantly nauseated, just super extremely nauseous. I became in pain through like my entire body, mostly like my intestines, like my stomach area was in a lot of pain, and I felt like extremely bloated for some odd reason. And I kept making trips to the doctors, to the hospitals. I was hospitalized like once or twice a month. And every time I hoped someone would finally tell me what was wrong. Instead, I kept hearing the same thing over and over again, like, you have an ulcer, you have an ulcer. And I did have an ulcer. And yeah, I did have an ulcer. That was definitely one of the pains. They prescribed me ulcer medication and pain medication. The pain medication would help for a little bit, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. My body was telling me there was something much more serious going on. And then I started becoming addicted to pain meds, which, yeah, we'll go more into that. This went on for nearly 10 months, so almost about a year. I was just hospitalized, saw doctor after doctor. Doctors literally couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And I even started making cabbage drinks from scratch because I was that desperate and thought I might have had something like Crohn's disease. And also, if I remember correctly, it helps with ulcers. And I did have an ulcer at the time. And it would just like burn all the time. But like the ulcer medication really helped with that. But so like I was making like cabbage drinks from scratch, drinking cabbage drinks all the time. I also could only eat like very plain foods. I only could eat like one meal a day. I remember I had like I could only eat like rice and like this like frozen crispy chicken, I think. And I couldn't even eat like if I had like canned soup, I had to like drain the broth because like for some reason I couldn't even eat that. And so let's move on. I was being hospitalized about once a month and with no real answers. During that time, I also became dependent on pain medication, something that wasn't completely that it was completely out of my character for me. I never struggled with anything like this before, but I was in so much pain that I didn't know what else to do. Eventually, I had to quit my job because I couldn't even like function anymore. Things got so bad and my health started declining. I couldn't even like carry a conversation or speak to anybody. Um I lost so much weight that I only weighed about 90 pounds. And I'm 5'6", so 90 pounds is definitely underweight. You started to see like my bones in the back and like on my back, they were like sticking out. And I couldn't even get dressed. Even though I kept trying to work out because I thought it might help me feel better, my body was giving out. I became so weak that I could barely get out of bed. I remember just like laying in my bed and I tried watching TV. And this was like towards like the 9-10 month mark that I was going through this. And I remember like laying in bed and looking at the TV and I was like, "Oh my God, am I going blind?" I couldn't really see the TV that well. It was just like I don't even know how to describe it or anything, but my vision was more than blurry. Like I was literally going blind, or at least I was losing my vision. Then something even more terrifying started happening. I couldn't even sit and watch TV because everything was becoming blurry. Honestly felt like my body was slowly shutting down and no one could tell me why. It was just ridiculous. After 10 months of living like this, I reached a point where I couldn't take it anymore. I remember thinking that I didn't want to keep living like this. Not because I wanted to die, but because the pain had become so unbearable that I couldn't imagine surviving another day like this. And I think, yeah, at that time, I the doctors could no longer prescribe me more pain medication because of the addiction. I they gave me the maximum dosage that they could give me, and so they couldn't give me anymore. And that really helped me function a little bit more throughout the day. But of course, like pain meds, ugh, gross. Uh, and but then something happened that completely changed the course of my life. And I will never forget this experience for the rest of my life. And for the longest time, I really just I had to do so much healing to kind of heal from all of this. Uh with just kind of like pain within my body. And so I am a lot more sensitive to pain, like feeling pain in my body. And this happened like 11 or so years ago. I'm not gonna do the math right now, but it's been a while since this happened. And I just, you know, it really has messed me up. So I've had to go through a lot of healing and, ooh, but now I feel a lot better. And let's continue on with the story. So something happened that changed the course of my life. Then that night, so I think it was about like, it was like about 10 months. Yeah, I believe it was like 10 months. And I don't remember what month it was, but I know it was in 2011. And that night, my mom woke up in the middle of the night and it like in her bedroom and saw my dad standing in the doorway of her bedroom. My dad had passed away when I was only 15 years old from an aneurysm. I had to like think what it was called. And so, I think when this happened to me, I was how old was I? I think I was like 26, 25 years old, I think if I remember correctly. And now I'm like 39. I'll be 40 in like 5 weeks. Woo, 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 woo. Or 40 years young. And so like my mom was sleeping that night and she felt something really eerie and it just like woke her up out of her sleep, she said, and she saw like an outline of my dad, like at the doorway of her bedroom. Like he didn't like walk in her bedroom. He was just standing like at the doorway entrance. And she told me first thing in the morning, she immediately felt that he was there because something was terribly wrong with me. So she got like the feeling from my dad that something was really terrible wrong with me and that like my mom needed to react to something like quick. Because, for the longest time, my mom's like kind of old fashioned. She's like, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you, like overthinking things. Because sometimes we can think that there's really something wrong with us, but really there's nothing wrong with us. It's just like we're like a hypochondriac. And so, but this wasn't the case at all. And so my dad told my mom that I wasn't going to make it if we didn't find answers soon. The very next morning, my mom looked at me and said, "You're getting a colonoscopy. Colonoscopy. We're going to find out what's going on." And I said, "Okay, like, I've seen so many doctors. I mean, like, I even saw a doctor in California because at the time I was dating this guy and we were doing like a long distance relationship. And I went to go visit him during that time when I was like sick at the time. And I stayed with him for like a month in California and I ended up being hospitalized in California. And again, I was diagnosed with an ulcer. And I saw multiple doctors in Colorado, and not one doctor could figure anything out. And I think it's like because a lot of doctors, they just kind of go with, the normal allergy thing, or, you know, yeah. So the next thing that happened was, the next thing that happened, it changed my life forever. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys for today in this episode. We're going to start off with the second episode about me talking about how and when and what happened when I got this colonoscopy done, and what kind of progressed going further into that. And then we'll just continue on with this story, and I'll tell you what they found inside my body, how close I actually came to dying, how close this experience became like the beginning of my spiritual awakening. And last but not least, I really would like to end each of my episodes with a nice little question, or like a little, maybe it could be like a question or a saying, to get you to think. So here's a question, and you feel free to answer the question in the comments below, or you can, answer the question yourself privately if you don't want to answer the question in the comments. But the question is, what's one thing your soul has been trying to tell you this week? This is important. Very important question. But that's a wrap for this episode. I will see you in my next episode. Thank you for joining me today on Healings with Kat. If today's episode spoke to your heart, I'd be so grateful if you followed the podcast and left a review. It truly helps more people find these conversations. Until we meet again, remember to protect your energy, listen to your intuition, and give yourself grace as you continue your healing journey. Sending you so much love and light. Take care, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.